Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tradition Never Graduates pod. It's our Week 6 review and Week 7 preview. Got a lot to get into on this episode as we continue to move our way through the regular season, getting closer to the state playoffs with each week now just a month away from having brackets in our hands, if you can believe that. So to start it off, we're going to cover model performance and then get into some of this action we just witnessed in Week 6, which led to a lot of really interesting results around the state, particularly in a few districts, which we'll spend a little bit of time on here as we go through that review to keep you all apprised, as always, on what those results mean for the playoff race and how things are shaping up as we move on ahead into Week 7. So without further ado, I will bring Josh in and we'll go ahead and start it off with the model performance from Week 6.
All right. Sounds good, man. All right, so in Week 6, there were only 104 games involving 6A squads this week, and the model got 86 of those correct for 82.7% correct pick percentage. It was a little bit below our norm here since we've been running this thing live. We've been averaging 84.9% for Week 6, but you can see here in the prior years that there was some variance there, 86% down to 80. Back up to 87, now 82.7 this week. So, I mean, nothing to be concerned over. Still really good performance, and we'll see that as we go through the games this week. But we're going to have to start hitting some higher 80s numbers to get back to our 81.5% here. You can see we've got 612 games in the books, and we're just around the 1,200 mark here over the past few years. I think we'll end up right there again this year. So, about halfway done at this point, and sitting at 76.6% for the year to date, which again, not bad, but gonna have to start getting some, high to mid 80s weeks coming up here soon here, Jeremy.
Yeah, feel like it's been kind of one of those seasons overall with just a bit more unpredictability in certain spots, and we'll cover a few more of those games that happened this week on the biggest upsets section, which y'all will be able to see on the screen when we get there. But yeah, some more notable results to talk about again this week. I feel like each week since we've started district play, we've had at least a small handful of these like big kind of eye-opening results to talk about. And this past week was no different. So of course we'll be getting into that here as we move into the review of week 6 rather.
Yeah, we sure will. So let's just get right to it here. Let's go on down like we do, just through the districts as we find games that need to be discussed for one reason or another. And we're going to start with this Boswell-Crowley result, Jeremy. Boswell was a 12-point underdog in this one, ends up winning it by a single point. And the reason that's significant here is it causes a fair bit of chaos here in 3-6A, as you can see in spots 3 through 6. I mean, you've still got 4 teams very much alive for 2 spots here. So again, Boswell, by notching that victory, keeps themselves right in the mix, and Crowley, unfortunately, unable to separate. So they're in the muck with everybody else. We'll see when we preview the coming week how that might be affected. But yeah, that was a big result there, Jeremy, kind of a sneaky one.
Yeah, big result, and it threw this 3-6A race into the blender really for the playoff spots after North Crowley and Lake Ridge that are sitting pretty nicely perched up there at the top now with all the chaos going on behind them.
Yeah.
You look at that right-hand column, especially there, and look at kind of the model expectation for kind of the predicted wins and stuff and the percentages. It's, wide open race there, and only 2 are going to get in. 2 of these teams are going to ultimately drop out by the time we get to bye districts. So going to be a really crazy finish to that district based off of that Boswell result over Crowley.
It sure is. And alongside that one, we had Lake Ridge knocking off Mansfield to kind of keep their momentum going. And you can see, like you mentioned, what that did for their odds of making the playoffs. They're now sitting projected 2 games clear of 3rd place. So they did themselves a world of good by holding serve and beating Mansfield this week. So great stuff there. Let's go on to District 4 6A. We've got to talk about this result here. I'll get to it. It was the Northwest Texans getting a win over Hurst Bell 19-17. Bell was a 2-point favorite, end up falling by 2 in this one. And where that significant one, Bell was undefeated heading into that game, Jeremy. But what it has done here is kind of thrown themselves into a bit of a mess. So despite being undefeated 3-1 in district, they've kind of completed the easier part of their schedule. And you can see here, no one is projected to get to the kind of magical 5-win spot here in 4-6A. So what that does is similar to 3, you've got a whole bunch of teams here. Even Northwest is still alive because they're sitting 1 game behind the projected 4th place Keller, and they've knocked off Bell here. So another district where things have just been thrown into a mess here by an upset.
Yeah, absolutely significant result there to put the 4th playoff spot in this district really up for grabs. And it doesn't look like there's any threat in terms of the playoff seeding being changed a lot. It looks like this is mainly a competition for who's going to be the 2nd seed in Division I, most likely along with Trinity, if the district plays out according to what the model's kind of expecting now.
Yeah, that's correct, because Nelson and Carroll are essentially locks at this point. So yeah, you're just fighting out for the other 2, unless Northwest is going to be your 4th team, which these odds, again, remember, these are calculated based on reaching 5 district wins in a 9-team district. And right now, no one's projected to get there. So that's why even Northwest, while they're less than 2% to get to 5 wins, being just one game off of the current 4th place projected team, they still have a shot to get in. So
yep, not totally out of it yet.
No, not at all. So pretty wild.
Yeah, the impact of Northwest getting in would move Byron Nelson to D1 just for the audience.
Good stuff there. Next one we got to talk about is Hebron over Marcus. This one was huge for Hebron's chances here of getting into the playoffs. Let's take a look at the standings, see what that did. It was a 49-42 win, and it really puts Hebron in a great position here. Even though they're just, now into 4th, they beat like their primary contender for that 4th spot this week. So they've got, the win in hand, and they're now projected a game in front. So they could even afford to drop one potentially, and fall into a tie with Marcus, and they'd still have the head-to-head advantage. So that was enormous. That's why the computer's favoring essentially these 4 teams, Louisville, Geyer, Coppell, and Hebron, to be getting close to being set, even though still got a few games to go here.
Yeah, good job by the Hawks getting that win to control their destiny, which of course everybody wants when it comes to the playoff race. And you see what that did in terms of the percentages, and really puts Hebron, as you said, in a great spot there.
Sure does. All right. Next team to talk about is one that keeps coming up because they keep on winning, Jeremy. It's the Princeton Panthers, who got a 30-21 win over McKinney. We highlighted how big of a game this was last week, but they actually go out and they get the job done. So all of a sudden, you see that Princeton has vaulted into the projected 3rd spot in district, and that knocked McKinney all the way down to 7th, and essentially knocking McKinney out of the race altogether. So that was a massive win for Princeton.
Yeah, they're really learning how to win there, the Panthers, this season, getting to 5-1 and putting themselves in strong contention to secure one of the playoff spots available here. And what I also noticed in this district too, Josh, Plano West very sneakily up to 5-1 now themselves here in this district. And yeah, the Prosper result over Rock Hill right here was really eye-opening too, because it was a huge model overperformance by Prosper there, favored by 35 and won by about 61, I think, something like that. Or, yeah, even better,
66.
66.
Yeah.
Can't do math today.
That's all right. There's a lot of numbers on the board.
Yeah.
But yeah, a couple hugely significant results here. That Plano West win over Plano. Again, looking back here at the standings, I mean, West is now sitting above Plano with the tiebreak in hand. They've still got a fighting chance to get themselves in the playoffs.
Yeah, massive result for the Wolves there, putting themselves in firm contention for a playoff spot.
Yep, indeed. All right, let's go from there all the way to 10-6A. A lot of chalk in between on the districts there. So scroll on down to 10-6A, where every week is just a battle. And Longview got a huge win, kind of bouncing back, Jeremy, after their bye week against a really good Rockwall squad. Longview wins 35-21, overperforming the model expectations there. So great win for the Lobos on the road to get that one done.
Yeah, absolutely. Rockwall's just proven to be maybe the best 3-3 team in the state here, as competitive as they've been against some really good football teams so far this season. So that really is a key win for the Lobos, and yeah, valuable data point, as I like to say, in the model, just given so far we've seen Longview play teams in 5A and then an out-of-state matchup against the likes of like Ruston, Louisiana. So in terms of Longview's data, don't quite have them nailed down completely just yet. So this result over Rockwall kind of helps further align the Lobos with the rest of the top 25 ranked teams that we've got right now.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see a little bit of them later on, Jeremy, but North Forney, again, with another massive overperformance of the model. Clearly, ELO has not caught up to the Falcons. 6-0. We're projected to win by 26, and they win by 52. So decent that.
Yeah, having themselves a really great season so far, just scoring points for fun.
Yeah. Speaking of scoring points for fun, let's go to Midway versus Shoemaker, Jeremy. Big win here for Midway in a game they were favored by 2 points, and they win by 19, 66-47 over previously unbeaten Shoemaker.
Yeah, monster result for Midway there, getting one over Midway. And as you said, the model expectation there was a coin flip. So Midway overperforming there, getting that result by 19 points. And as we go to the standings there, you see that keeps Midway there in contention at the top of that district, along with Harker Heights there in the top spot. But yeah, really big win for Midway's positioning. And yeah, looking at the percentages there in 12-6A as we've got up on the screen, model 11 the chances of the top three, and then it's got a pretty solid 4 there in Temple, looking at kind of the expectation on where they'll land win-wise, projected to land a win ahead of Cop Cove there, who's currently projected in 5th, but obviously still very much in it. And I know that can look funny to people when they see a team that's 2-0 in district down in 5th place there. But with the models factoring in the whole picture here.
Yeah, and it's looking at kind of who you've played and who's left on the schedule, right? And kind of taking all of that into account. Cove so far has played the bottom 2 teams in district. So, much tougher road ahead for them. Not that they can't do it. That also means they have opportunities, right? They have opportunities to knock off some of those teams ahead of them. So we shall see. All right. Of course, we couldn't get through a podcast without going to 13-6A. Seems like there's always interesting things going on here. And Jeremy, we had a big game in Willis between College Park and the Wildcats of Willis. College Park was favored by 1. I got to say, I was pretty taken aback seeing this game play out. I got to watch it a little bit. College Park, though, runs out 55-37 victors, again, at Willis, which is not easy to do.
No, they fell behind by 2 scores to start the game. Willis led, I think, 13 or 14-0 to start the game, and then College Park stormed back into the game, tied up the score, and I think maybe even took the lead at 21-14. It kind of seesawed for a little bit just on the other side of halftime before College Park generated a turnover or 2 and was able to kind of put together a nice little snowball effect on Willis as the second half went on and put up that big winning margin and just pulled away from the Wildcats there in the second half. Not easy to go up there in Willis's building and win a game. We saw that with the Woodlands going up there just a couple of weeks ago and losing by 12. I think it was 42-30 games. So for College Park to go up there and do what the Woodlands couldn't do a couple of weeks ago is super impressive for the Cavaliers, and just further underscores what we've been talking about all season long. If you followed our pods, that College Park is a legit, really good football team this season. And they continue to show it every week. They're outperforming the model every single week.
Yeah, a lot like North Forney in that respect. I mean, two teams that are 6-0 and just absolutely crushing expectations every week. Let's take a quick peek at 13-6A on the standings projection here. And didn't touch on it, but there was a big win too where Conroe beat Oak Ridge, Jeremy. They were expected to do so, but you can see how badly they needed that because they're set up now right behind Grand Oaks, and we will get to that one eventually as well. But huge win there for the Conroe Tigers. And again, you can see College Park projected at the top here.
Yeah, this is going to fall into place very quickly. There's a really front-loaded district schedule here. So, yeah, after the final kind of key results that are going to come up here within a week, you're going to have this completely nailed down in terms of who's going to the postseason. It'll be pretty much settled here within a week.
Yeah, I agree with that. Barring it'll be settled. Yeah. All right. On to 15-6A. Speaking of a district we can never totally skip over. I mean, every result on the board was crazy here in their own way here, Jeremy. But let's start with the Klein Oak Collins game. So Collins was favored by 23. One of the biggest, if not the biggest, upset on the board this week. They end up getting knocked off by Klein Oak, who we know every year that they're a dangerous team. You can pretty much figure them being a very tough opponent no matter what their record is. But again, 23-point underdogs don't often come out actually with the victory. And Jeremy, at the end of this one, I absolutely love this when teams do this, but Klein Oak had battled back and they had scored very late in the game. I want to say less than a minute left, and it was potentially the game tying score. So it was 35-34 pending the extra point. And a lot of teams will just go ahead and kick that and say, no, let's go to overtime. But I love when teams make the decision and have the guts to go for two, because right there and then you have the game in your hands. You can essentially decide it on your terms, and you got to get 2 yards. So Oak went for it and ultimately drew up a brilliant play and converted 36-35, leaving just a few seconds on the clock. And they saw it through and got a huge victory there.
Yeah, they did this same thing to Kane a year ago when Kane was kind of at the catbird in the district. Oak, the Panthers, they just know how to get these results and come up and snake bite people. Of course, Collins coming off their big win over Klein the previous week. And it's like, you can see, for those of you following along the screen with this, I mean, look at these freaking results here in 15-6A. They're all single possession games. Like, if this isn't the best district in the state, I don't know what is. I mean, it's no worse than like top 2 or 3. That's for dang sure. I mean, just
agreed.
Man, the entertainment value in this district is second to none.
It's off the charts. Yeah. And, we can't go too long without talking about this Tomball Klein game. Tomball gets the win there, 53-47. They were favored by 1. They got it done by 6, but I believe they trailed for quite some time in this game, but ended up coming back and handing Klein their second straight loss. So great win there for Coach Handel's Cougars.
Yeah, huge developments across this district over the past couple of weeks, and just really fun as always to watch it all play out. It's like we had the preseason expectation that it was going to be like this, and then to see the way the games play out, even exceed that expectation, is just, it's a lot of fun.
Let's just hit the other two while we're here. Tomball Memorial, Jeremy, loses for the second week in a row when they scored over 60 points. That's pretty remarkable in itself. And then Magnolia survived a scare, a really good effort from Klein Kane in a game which Magnolia was favored by 2 TDs and ended up winning by 7. So great job by the Bulldogs there, keeping their undefeated season alive.
Yeah, and if you pull up the district standings really quickly here for 15-6A, Kane, that Magnolia result you just brought up, it's like Kane knew that was one they needed to be able to climb the ladder and get, because you look at how the model is seeing this race play out. You see where Kane and Oak are there in 5th and 6th place currently behind Klein. You see how important that could have been for Kane to climb that ladder and get a result over Magnolia. They fought for it, and obviously a 1-score game. And same thing with Oak. It's like they needed to be able to climb the ladder and get one to kind of keep themselves in the hunt. And they were able to do just that, of course, by sneaking that one out against Collins, and you see how big that is for them. I mean, it keeps them alive. It's like, sure, they're still kind of fighting an uphill battle there.
Yeah.
With the model expectation being that those top four are going to be pretty locked in potentially. But I mean, Oak and Kane are still in it for sure.
Yeah. Oak plays Klein in week 9, Jeremy. So
yeah,
there's still huge opportunities down the road. Great stuff there. How about let's go just a couple of districts down. Let's go to, where are we going next? We're going to Cy Springs and Bridgeland. Yeah, heck yeah, we are. All right, Cy Springs and Bridgeland. Yep. Bridgeland favored by 15, Jeremy, 15. And Cy Springs ends up knocking them off 49-48 in what was one heck of a ball game. Paris Melvin Jr. and company, you know they're dangerous, but Bridgeland had looked really strong here through much of the year. So that is an absolutely outstanding win for the Springs Panthers.
Yeah, huge win for Coach Bagan and Springs. It's like we've seen that program making steps forward here in recent seasons, and they've just continued to keep that momentum up this season, going to 4-1. Because I mean, for those of you that followed along with some, Bridgeland's only other loss is to an undefeated Ridge Point team that's one of the better teams in Region 3 this year.
Yeah.
In Bridgeland, in Coach Madison's crew there, they've just got a really good formula for winning football games with Cash Schwab and what they can do in the ground game, just their overall balance. They're very well coached. So for Springs to come out and get that win, you see how important that is for Springs, giving them a leg up there in the race for the playoffs, because you see it's effectively, I mean, even Cywood, you don't count them out there down in 6th place. So, I mean, you've got a 6-team race for 4 spots, and you see kind of what kind of tailspin it throws the entire district in there with that result, because it knocks Bridgeland from the ranks of the unbeaten there in district. So you've only got Cy Ranch and Waller now still sitting there at 2-0 apiece in district. So it opens up the district title race and knocks the playoff race wide open at the same time.
Yeah, it really does. Pretty remarkable stuff. All right, let's go on from there to 19-6A, Jeremy. Some absolutely massive results. Number one of those being Cinco Ranch, who was an 8-point underdog against Katy Jordan. And in the end, it's Cinco Ranch getting the job done on a walk-off field goal as time expires, 24-21. Jeremy, Coach Dudley's Cougars made at least 3, if not 4, fourth down stops against Jordan in this game to kind of keep them off the scoreboard, you know, a few different times. I'm talking deep in their own territory. And Jordan had stopped Cinco too a couple times, if I recall correctly. But what a gutsy, just grinded out win for the Cinco Ranch Cougars here. A huge win in the district, and we'll get to that as soon as Jeremy, you give your thoughts here.
Yeah, you'll see it in a second when we pull up the standings. But yeah, this is one of those climbing the ladder games that we keep talking about for a team like Cinco Ranch that's kind of caught up in the quagmire in the middle of the district, and they need to be able to climb their way up, get a result over someone who's ahead of them in order to keep their playoff hopes alive. And you'll see what this means for Cinco Ranch. I mean, just a huge boost in the model for their chances of securing a playoff spot based on being able to win that game. Those percentages look a heck of a lot different if they're not able to pull that out. So
yeah,
they knew they needed to have it, and they fought tooth and nail for it, as you mentioned, with all the things they had to get done to come out with a win there. So it's just a huge credit to the Cougars, Coach Dudley, and what they're able to do in that game. And shows, again, you look at the ELOs here in this district from spots 2 down through 6, and yeah, very closely matched. So it's not a surprise when you look at how the models kind of gauge these teams that we're seeing these close, kind of unpredictable games, because they are so tightly packed in there when you're talking about where they're positioned with regard to the ELO and kind of the model expectation. It's playing out exactly that way. It's like all these teams are capable of knocking each other off, and they have done really so far. So yeah, just big movements in the district as a result of that game. And yeah, still some big time games coming up, of course, that'll help settle it all out. But so far from a done deal, but yeah, moves the chess pieces a little bit further on the board.
It does. And that game was Thursday night. And then Friday night, on the heels of that, it made this Tompkins Made Creek result even much more significant than it already was. Tompkins was favored here, but by no means were they, big favorites. They were only favored by one in the computer. They end up winning 31-22 against a game Made Creek squad. And again, what did that do for Tompkins? Essentially kept them alive.
Yeah.
If Tompkins had lost that game, they're staring, no chance in the face, right? Or very, very slim odds. Now they're still sitting in a much better position than they would have been otherwise.
Yeah, because Tompkins is on the minus side of head-to-heads against both Jordan and Pato, I believe. So had they lost to Made Creek, that would have been 3 minuses on the tiebreak side that they absolutely needed at least one positive, if not 2 on. So yeah, that was one they had to have.
Yes, indeed. All right, let's move on then to a game that went as expected in terms of the winner, but pretty eye-opening result in terms of the score here, Jeremy. How about the battle down in Pearland between Dawson and the Pearland Oilers, where it took a very, just, again, another grinded out kind of victory from Pearland when they'd had pretty much no problem at all scoring all season. Just goes to show how legit this Dawson defense is, Jeremy. 17-13 final with Pearland coming out on top, despite being a 22-point favorite in the model. It's pretty clear that Dawson is another one of those squads that's quite underrated.
Yeah, I mean, just a classic crosstown rivalry result here between these two. When they get together and have these close games, had to be a really fun game for the folks in attendance there, if not a bit or a lot bit nerve-wracking for those in attendance on each side. But yeah, Oilers standing tough, showing they can win a game and grind out a result when they need to and play a lower scoring game, as you mentioned, how highly they've gone on the scoreboard here, and really all of their other prior games, or most of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think the lowest score they had before this may have been the 36 they scored against Houston Memorial, I believe would have been their low mark. Yes. Yeah, so big result for the Oilers, and yeah, Dawson proven to be one of those teams that probably don't want to run into.
Yeah, for sure, Jeremy. Yeah, their low was that 37 against Memorial, and they had been over 63 times since then.
Yeah.
So really impressive stuff again from both teams, and a really good showing by Dawson. All right, from that result, we got to go to 25-6A, Jeremy, where things just get weirder and weirder. So second biggest upset on the board in terms of points, but probably the number one in terms of perception, at least for me, was Vandegrift getting knocked off by McNeil by a score of 17-14. Again, Vandegrift was a 22-point favorite here. McNeil coming in, pretty strong throughout this season, but defense had not been their strong point. So you thought, if Vandegrift was going to get their offense untracked, this might have been the week, but their defense does the job, holding an explosive McNeil side to 17. But man, I'm starting to be a little bit concerned about Vandy's offense, Jeremy.
Yeah, really stunning result. When I saw this one come through, I had to kind of look at it 2 or 3 times to make sure I was seeing it right. And it's like 25-6A doing 25-6A things once again this week. But man, even by this district standards, that's an eye opener for sure. And the level we've seen the Vipers at the past few seasons, especially, it's like, yeah, you don't see a result like this or expect it to come through. But yeah, Vipers having to recalibrate a little bit after this one, and be interested if you pulled up the district standings here quickly for 25-6A.
I will. I just was checking that. That was indeed McNeil's first ever win over Vandegrift. So
yeah,
remarkable in several ways.
Navigate to the district standings here for you. There we go.
Yeah, here we go. So yeah, McNeil, look at that. They darn near cemented their spot in the playoffs, considering they're projected 2 games ahead of 5th place Hutto currently. And yeah, that's a pretty good position to be sitting in week 7.
Yeah, and you see the model expectation here is that you'll have 4 pretty strong teams going to the playoffs here that are going to reach potentially that 6-win threshold there when all is said and done. in the district based on the remaining schedule and kind of what they're projected to do from here on out. But yeah, can't ignore the Hippos obviously there. And then you've got the bottom four there kind of very much on the outside looking in at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to say that is the case. All right. The other result here, let's see. Let me go back to the games. This Cedar Ridge win over Stony Point. Again, may not think a ton of it, but that kind of was what cemented this bottom four's fate, really. Stony Point was sitting there a little bit in contention, but by having lost that game, now you've got, like you said, kind of the bottom four. It's going to be dang near impossible unless they just pull some enormous upsets.
Yeah, because again, you see the model expectation there. If the magic number here is six, and you're sitting at 0-4 in district, which Stony Point is now, then yeah, you're not going to get there.
Yeah, 5 is the number you'd love to get to, but right now you've got a team in 4th projected to hit 6. So yeah, it's tough. All right, last one actually of this week, Jeremy. We got to go down to another just mad district. San Antonio Warren ended up beating Stevens 24-21. Stevens was favored by 1, but let's look at 28-6, excuse me. Because it's just, this is a new level of wow. Jeremy, 7 teams are still alive in this district. There's 9 in the district, and 7 are still somewhat, with a shot here. So you got Harlan, Brennan, and Sotomayor pretty safe at the top. You figure 3 of your 4 spots are pretty well claimed at this point, and you've got Taft, O'Connor, Warren, Stevens, all sitting there, 1 game separating them as far as where they're projected here with ELO. So literally just about anything can happen among those 4.
Yeah, and it will. Very closely matched. If you look at those ELO numbers there, I mean, just hard to get any closer than that between 4 teams there, all fighting for 1 spot. So it's like somebody has to miss out, unfortunately for them. But yeah, it's going to be a wild ride to see who snags that last spot. And as you can see here, if you're looking at the enrollments, that contention is for the 2nd seed in the Division I bracket, with Brennan being the largest enrollment here. Harlan and Sotomayor both projected, and the top 3 are the smallest 2 schools in the district. So they're Division II locks.
Yeah, I think it's just crazy to see 4 teams going for 4th, right? A lot of times we'll see 4 teams for 2 spots, or 4 teams battling for 2nd through 4th, but a full 4 teams going for 4th place is kind of nuts. All right. That actually kind of takes us through the most significant results here of week 6. So let's go on and let's get into the new top 100. On the screen, you can see the best games review. We did a lot better this week. We had a couple of weeks where we were under 500. This week, the model went 17-8 in the top 25 games. So you love to see it bounce back. All right, we covered pretty much all of those upsets. All right, so the new top 100 on the board. And Jeremy, I think this is becoming a theme here. The top 14, 15, well, shoot, we can even get down into, well, it's going to become consistent now with College Park finally getting in there. But I guess my point was going to be the top 20, pretty darn solid as far as who are the best 20 teams. Now, anyone could argue over the ordering of this group, but there wasn't a ton of movement this week. And I think, again, it's just illustrating the fact that the best teams have kind of risen to the top at this point, with maybe a couple exceptions. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think so too. Like you said, the order may be still up for debate exactly, but usually it's the playoffs that are going to settle that out ultimately. But in terms of gauging the teams against one another, I think it's got a pretty good handle on things currently. And one game we didn't really talk about on the previous section, but that Summer Creek result over Atascocita was obviously huge here. We could have had a big jump or drop, I should say, in the standings had that gone Atascocita's way. It was a 38-35 result for Summer Creek, and Summer Creek had to drive the length of the field to win that game effectively. They were about 89 yards away. And that was the game-winning drive for Summer Creek on the back of their very, very good passing game this year that won that football game for them. Great rivalry game, and that was a phenomenal football game. But yeah, that could have shook up these rankings a bit had that gone another way. But yeah,
Jeremy,
more where that came from next week. Yeah.
Yeah. And before we leave that one, that was a complete just fumble on my part. I had it on my notes and just kind of ran over it. I guess I got too excited to get to the 25-6A madness. But yeah, that probably was the best game of the season, to be honest. I mean, it was back and forth the entire game. It looked like at any given point, whoever had the ball was going to win, right? It was just back and forth in the second half after, a little bit cagey opening to the game. The playmakers just started going off here in crunch time, and Summer Creek had actually received the ball on their 10-yard line with, I want to say, a minute 40 left in the game, thereabouts. And they had a procedure penalty that took them back to the 5. So officially it was a 90-yard drive to score the game winner, but they actually got as deep as their own 5 and went 95 yards. Again, just surgical passing there with all of the various options they have. Benny Easter went off in this game. It's pretty ridiculous when you look at the weapons that they have outside, plus having a quarterback like Noah Spinks who can deliver with such accuracy. And man, he is so calm back there in the pocket, Jeremy. It seems like there's just absolute chaos going on, and he's the coolest dude in the building. And God, throws a beautiful ball. I just can't get over. He really layers the ball in there so nice, and used that to full advantage, went all the way down the field, really breaking Atascocita's hearts there. They could have possibly should have had that one, but Summer Creek really showed their quality.
Yep. He sits in his spot in the pocket. He's like a seasoned card dealer in Vegas, man. He doesn't move a ton from his spot, but I mean, he just deals to perfection to these playmakers they've got.
Yeah, it's something to behold. I mean, they legitimately have 4 receivers that would be the best guy on any other team. So yeah, it's a ridiculous team to deal with. We'll get to more on them here in a little bit, but yeah. So for those of you who are just listening, the top 10: Carroll, Allen, Summer Creek, Westlake, Lake Travis, Duncanville, Prosper, Longview, Ridge Point, and Dickinson. So we won't read off the top 100 to you because that would be boring, and nobody wants to hear that.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah. But I guess let's just scroll through here quickly to see.
Van de Grift dropping out of the top 25. That was the biggest drop there at the top. They dropped 8 spots down to 28.
Yep.
And you see a lot of seesaw here in the mid-range.
Yep. McNeil here climbing 26 spots with that win over Van de Grift.
Big spots. Klein Oak making a little jump there up 11 spots to number 64.
Yep. I feel like there was another 20 plus spot jump down here. Oh yeah, it was Langham Creek. Langham Creek might be the quietest 4-1 in the state. Kind of surprised me to see them sitting there at 4-1, but they move up 25 spots there to 99 to get inside the top 100. Jeremy, that's pretty darn cool for the Lobos.
Yep, Lobos rolling back the clock a bit this year, getting off to that strong start.
All right, so I wanted to touch on this quickly, Jeremy, this week. So last week I started putting out the adjusted scoring leaders throughout the state, and want to just bring that up for folks here. So let's take a look at where we sit after week 7. So we mentioned Summer Creek's ridiculous offense, but look who's sitting number 1 in adjusted scoring this week. It is the CE King Panthers. In fact, 3 of your top 4 all come from 23-6A, and what can you say? It's a remarkable district, and heck, you can go down to 12th, and there's North Shore. So a lot of incredibly explosive offensive squads in that district, Jeremy. But I'll read off the top 10 for folks, and then we can talk about it for a quick second. But so top 10 adjusted scoring offenses, you got CE King, Summer Creek, Allen, Atascocita, Klein, DeSoto, Prosper, South Lake Carroll. There's College Park at 9. And SGP at 10. So before I toss it to you, Jeremy, just quickly, what we're trying to do here is separate just points per game. So we've got that notated here for folks, but this adjusted scoring number takes into account the defenses that teams have played against to try to put everything on a level playing field. So if we just look at one example, Summer Creek being plus 30, okay, and they've scored 56 points a game. So that tells you that essentially they're an average team would score 26 points against the defenses they faced. They've scored 56.8. So that difference is the plus 30. So that's what we're looking at here, top to bottom, Jeremy. But what do you think about how these are shaking out so far?
Yeah, I mean, no surprise. All these teams are extremely explosive, just very, very good offenses that are shaping up this year. And number 1 and number 2 are playing each other next week. Just little spoiler alert for what's coming up in the next section. So get your popcorn ready officially for that one. My goodness, 2 teams that are over plus 30 in adjusted offense, which, if you're wondering at home, is stratospheric when you get up to 30 plus on that. Really, anything in the top 10 here is extremely good. Anything 25 and up, in my opinion, is like a very, very good offense to great offense. So these are all teams that are on another level when compared to the rest of the state with what they're able to do on offense relative, as Josh pointed out, to what their opponents typically allow.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So again, you're comparing what an average team would do against the same schedule, and then measuring what these teams actually did. So here's that North Forney squad, Jeremy, coming in at 16th with a 90.2 graded offense, plus 23, scoring 52 points a game. That's pretty amazing stuff. Dripping Springs been pretty consistent all season. Katie's a little bit surprising there at 19, but they're putting up some pretty ridiculous rushing totals. Yeah. And speaking of ridiculous rushing totals, I thought it was cool to see EP Franklin jump in on this list, Jeremy. Plus 17. Get this, they have a running back, Ernie. Oh shoot, what's Ernie's last name? I don't want to get it wrong, but anyway, their running back is averaging over 300 yards a game rushing. So
that's right. We can make him Brazilian and he can go on first name basis because he's that good.
Yeah, just Ernie. It's Ernie Powers. Ernie Powers. Sorry about that.
Yeah, even better. Yeah. Great last name.
So yeah, not bad. Not bad at all there. From there, let's look at the top 25 adjusted scoring defenses. I think this one's super, super interesting. The top 10 defenses in the state by this metric, again, it's not perfect, but I think it's pretty cool. Allen is number 1, South Lake Carroll 2, North Shore up to 3, Jeremy. Hello. Westlake 4, Ridgepoint 5, Longview 6, Lake Travis, Duncanville, Vandegrift at 9, Denton Geyer at 10. Kind of a usual suspects list here, really. You expect to see these teams every year, and again, they're grading out. Probably the surprise would be Ridgepoint at 5. That's really what's setting their team apart this year from previous editions, I would say.
It is. They've been much more heavily weighted to the offensive side in recent seasons. So the fact that they've recovered playing at a really high level on defense this year shows you why they're sitting there undefeated and outperforming model expectations every week. Basically one of those teams that just continues to do very impressive business with each game that they play. So no surprise to see the Panthers sitting there the way they've been playing. Really overall this year with what we've seen on the offensive side of the ball in particular, I mean, pretty tough sledding. I mean, in previous seasons, we've seen more defenses below that minus 20 threshold, but yeah, this year it's a tough deal. And I mean, look at Allen up there in the one spot. I mean, we got to spend a second or two on that. I mean, with what I just mentioned about the offensive level in the state this year. So for this Eagles defense to be sitting there allowing 5.4 points a game and be minus 25.4, which in the adjusted defense realm is stratospheric. I was talking about that plus 30 number on the offensive side of the ball. For adjusted defense, I would set it at minus 25 is kind of, your elite level there. And Allen's just been unbelievable on the defensive side of the ball this year.
Yeah. So again, allowing 5 points a game and having a minus 25 adjusted scoring number means that An average team would give up 30 points a game with the same schedule. Allen's giving up 5. So, hello. You'll get another massive hello in a second when I show you the combined scatter plot here of offense and defense. Because you may be already thinking it in your head. You might be thinking, wait a second, I just saw Allen pretty high on the offense list too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, hold please. But like the offense was dominated by 23 6A, look at the 11 6A teams here on the defensive side. Jeremy, got Duncanville, Lancaster, Waxahachie, Cedar Hill, all inside the top 13. All right, we'll just kind of scroll on down to the bottom end here. And again, a surprise at 25, North Forney. So North Forney's inside the top 25 in both adjusted scoring offense and defense. So that's pretty remarkable. That's good stuff. And in fact, seeing Summer Creek here with their offense being inside the top 25 on defense, pretty dang strong. So what do we do with that? Offense and defense need to work together. So we came up with this plot here to kind of lay both things against each other. And oh boy, if there's probably nobody besides you and I on this, Jeremy, but if anyone listening or watching is a soccer head, there would be a lot of graphs produced over the years, a lot of scatter plots, and there was a hashtag top right Messi because Messi would be in the top right of any scatter plot ever made. But Allen is out here all by their lonesome. Look how remarkably separated they are from every other team in the state when we look at the adjusted scoring metrics.
Yeah, you look at that. Yeah, top right is good, in case you're wondering, those of you following on the screen. Allen and South Lake out there in the top right quadrant there pretty much by themselves. And then there's a cluster of North Shore, Westlake, and Ridge Point kind of just in behind them. Lake Travis also there. Duncanville pops up a little bit lower there. And then when you look at the more offense-weighted side, kind of more on the top middle of the plot, you've got Summer Creek there in C.E. King there as well. You've got DeSoto, Prosper, Atascocita, and Klein in that same kind of range. If you were to draw a nice little ellipses around those teams there at the top, it's the ones that are doing it primarily on the offensive side of the ball. So yeah, the top right there, I mean, it just shows you with how Allen's performing this year. You can expect them to be a contender by the time we have playoff brackets roll out here in a few weeks, barring just a complete precipitous drop off, which I don't expect to happen at this point. I feel like we have enough data to really be able to appreciate this kind of plot and see really how teams are positioning. It reminds me of kind of the old F1 races and stuff. You see how teams are positioning there before we get into the playoff brackets and see who's going to come out in pole position after the qualifiers. And yeah, Allen would be that team right now in the pole position along with the likes of the South Lake there. So yeah, kind of just helps you quantify just beyond like raw records or raw points, more points against, like who actually are the most impressive teams in the state. So that's why I like looking at the adjusted offense and defense numbers and then putting the combined profile here on a scatter plot, because it helps you just quantify all the numbers and kind of sort through like who's going furthest above and beyond what the expectation would be. And it helps
agreed.
you. Yeah.
Great. I guess I should have pointed out how to read this thing first of all, but you got adjusted scoring offense on the y-axis. So going from a grade of 70 at the bottom up to 100, and then adjusted scoring defense is on the x-axis starting at, I don't know where that is, probably about 67 as a offense grade all the way out to 100. So again, the farther right you find yourself on the graph, the better defensive team you are, and the farther up in terms of the y-axis you are, the better in offense. So again, you want to be both ideally, and Allen's darn near maxing out both stats. And what separates this from just the ELO is that these numbers are calculated independent of ELO. So basically, again, all of these compare how these teams are doing compared to what an average team would do against the same schedule. So it's not foolproof, but it gives you pretty cool comparisons. I don't think without this, I would necessarily compare North Forney to Pearland, but you can see how their dots are right next to each other. Stuff like that interests me, or like Drip and North Crowley kind of being right next to each other. Tomball and Klein Collins. So, well, that's not surprising. They played a 35-34 game. So those are the kind of things that I like to pull out of this. I think it's pretty cool.
Yep. No, great stuff. Love a good scatter plot.
Yes, sir. We nerds, we do like that. All right. So that was a lot about that stuff. But Jeremy, I think we're ready now to break down the top games of week 7. So let's get to it. Week 7 games of the week coming out swinging here with DeSoto versus Duncanville. Jeremy, is that any good?
Yeah, we've got a couple of just whoppers to talk about. And yeah, that's whopper number 1 there, DeSoto, Duncanville. And obviously made a ton more interesting given some back-to-back results we saw with both of these teams involved against Waxahachie prior to the bye week that they both just had here in week 6. So they're coming out of the bye and going directly into this titanic encounter against one another. So, of course, as you know, Waxahachie beating Duncanville and then DeSoto going and beating Waxahachie the very next week. So that really set the table about as good as you could hope for this rivalry game, which has really been a spectacle to watch here in recent seasons with DeSoto obviously working their way up to state champion level on their own right alongside Duncanville, of course, for 2 seasons in a row there. They were both the defending state champions in Division II and Division I, respectively, over 2 years. Double back-to-back state champions out of the same district. So, yeah, this has just been an unbelievable contest to watch play out here in recent seasons, just given that huge level of success that both of these have enjoyed. So, yeah, and you see the model expectation here on the right. For those following on the screen, Duncanville is favored 60.4% to win, 4 points on the scoreboard, and you see the game score there clocking in at 92.6, which is good. So, yeah, just unbelievable encounter that we've got here, and just really interested to see DeSoto's level exactly, just given that Waxahachie result. And I know it's not always, apples to apples comparison in terms of how matchups play out, but yeah, I think it's definitely reasonable, and the model agrees that, this is going to be a seesaw type of game that could go either direction with where it's got a pointed slight lean, the slightest of leans to Duncanville, but very much in the realm where the Eagles can pull it out as well. So I think just going to be excellent game, and it's going to really help position things in the top 10 for sure. As you see DeSoto just on the outside of the top 10 there, Josh, at 11, Duncanville sitting at number 6. So this is one that'll have pretty big impact there at the top of the rankings based on which way it goes.
Yeah, it sure will. And I don't mean to belabor this point every time we talk about Duncanville, but it's interesting to me, right, that they're sitting here having only played 3 games at this point, whereas DeSoto's played 5. And I think there's got to be some advantage on DeSoto's side for having 5 games under their belt, whereas Duncanville's had, 2 bye weeks already. I mean, Duncanville obviously could still win the game, but I think it certainly has to help DeSoto that they've had more time to kind of work through the kinks and figure out who they are. And it's just so unusual for a team, a 6A ball to have only played 3 games at this point.
Yeah, and DeSoto obviously had quite a few things exposed in those 2 losses they had, so they were able to get back to the drawing board, and they've won 3 in a row since that 0-2 start. And that win over Waxahachie showed that they seem to have gotten things kind of turned around from that start, and they have a chance to kind of further confirm that based on the way they're able to play here against the Panthers. And then on the other side for Duncanville, it's like they've got to come out, respond to that district loss they had there against Waxahachie and see if they can get one over their rival. We know the talent's there for Duncanville with the array of speed they have across their skill positions on offense, the talent they've got on the defensive side of the ball also. But it's like when you've been at the top as long as Duncanville has, it's like everybody's giving you their best shot, including the likes of DeSoto, who's also kind of been on the mountaintop themselves. So it's like, when you're Duncanville or DeSoto for that matter, it's like you've got to just bring it 100% every week, no matter who you're playing, and especially when you're playing each other.
Yeah, it is exactly, and it's rare that both of these teams come in to this matchup both with a loss on the board already. I don't know that we've seen that actually. So remarkable game here this week. Can't wait to see how it plays out. Second best game on the board is Summer Creek versus CE King. Huge game. Summer Creek's favored by 11 according to Elo, and I think probably I might agree with that, just in the sense that between the two teams, Summer Creek has the better defense this year. That's not always been the case. CE King, for a while was known for their defense more than anything, but now, as we pointed out earlier, they're the number one adjusted scoring offense in the state, with Summer Creek being 2. So both of these teams very explosive. You can hold them down the whole game, and then they can score in bunches on you. So I think this one probably is a little bit heavy towards Summer Creek, but I agree with them being the favorite, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's heavy to Summer Creek with the plus 11 expectation, having seen both of these teams in detail now over complete games. I feel like this is just going to be an unbelievable football game, and I expect it to go higher on the scoreboard than did Summer Creek at Tascasita. Be hard for it to go higher than CE King at Tascasita did. I believe that was a 71 to 55 or 53 kind of game. Of course, favoring CE King won that. So CE King did a bit better against a Tascasita than Summer Creek did, but it's, again, not necessarily apples to apples comparison, because you've got the rivalry aspect there with Summer Creek and Tascasita, which can skew things a bit in that regard, just given those guys all grow up together and playing together their whole lives. But yeah, this is just going to be an amazing display of offense. Like we just reviewed on the previous section, the top 2 adjusted offenses in the state, both over plus 30 per game in adjusted offense. CE King's just an incredibly versatile team on offense. They can do it all, and it's no fluke, the numbers they're putting up, which is why you see him at the very top there on the in the adjusted on the offensive side of the axis there, that CEK there on the scatter plot, the top middle. And then you see where Summer Creek's at. So there's going to be points in this game, in case you're wondering. I think the playmakers could take this one over based on what I saw of Atascocita and their own playmakers against Summer Creek, and then what King did in that same matchup against Atascocita as well. I think we can reasonably expect a ton of points, and I think it's going to come down to maybe a turnover, special teams play. Maybe somebody gets a stop late, but last team with the ball wins type of situation is what I see here.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's gonna take a stop somewhere. So you're exactly right. Next one, Jeremy, North Forney versus Rockwall Heath. This should be another barn burner again. 2 spectacular offenses going at it, both inside the top 25 in the state, in our numbers anyway. North Forney here favored by 3, but we've mentioned kind of that Elo does not seem to fully appreciate them just yet. So if anything, maybe underestimating their chances here, but Rockwall Heath has proven to be a resilient team and a tough one to beat, Jeremy.
Yeah, I think so too. Both of these teams have come out and played really well so far. I mean, Rockwall Heath has surprised me in a lot of ways with the way that they've been performing this season. So it's like, I want to be careful not to discount them here, but I think it's going to be a really excellent football game in what's a great district. And I think North Forney is going to have to really work to maintain their undefeated season, but I think it's going to be a really entertaining game that these two are going to play against one another. And very important, of course, for playoff seating and positioning here, with Rockwall Heath, in a good position, but they could be in a stronger position. So it's like, obviously they're going to put everything they have into this game to try and stay above the fray there, because we do have a 5-team race for 4 playoff spots here in 10-6A. So that's what is at stake here. These two teams most likely will be in separate divisions. I think they're pretty much, they're guaranteed to be in separate playoff divisions. So there's not necessarily seating on the line, but definitely a district title potentially with North Morty still being undefeated. Rockwall Heath is actually 1-0 in district, so they're still technically undefeated. So they're still in the hunt there for the 10-6A title. Longview being the other team sitting there at 1-0 so far in district. So yeah, everything on the line.
Indeed. And speaking of Longview, they're playing Forney this week. The computer has them favored by 18. Yeah, you kind of can see that. Forney rated number 42 in terms of their ELO rating. Longview there at 8 inside the top 10. I don't see anything that would have me, afraid to have Longview that high, except we know these teams have played some close games against each other here in very recent history. So it's going to take Longview's full attention here in this one, Jeremy.
Yeah, well, Lobos, they had a really nice result over Rockwall this past week that we covered earlier in the pod, and just got to keep that momentum going and keep riding their strong defense, and I think they'll be all right in that one.
Next one on the board is Vista Ridge versus McNeil. This one now has some pretty, a lot of intrigue, I would say. Vista Ridge is favored by 2 in ELO, and again, the interest here being that McNeil just knocked off Vandegrift, and so we will see how this one plays out. It shouldn't affect either team's playoff prospects because they're both pretty solidly inside the projection at this point.
The battle's for seeding.
Yeah, it's just a really, really good game between two solid ball clubs.
Yeah, it'll determine number 1 seed in Division 2 versus 2 seed based on who wins and loses, because they're both going D2.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
Yeah. It depends who else gets in, but the point is well taken there.
Yep.
All right, on from that one, another game here between some really solid teams. Geyer versus Hebron. So Geyer's favored by 16 in this one. Hebron having just knocked off Marcus to get themselves in position. The projections here for Hebron won't change because obviously the computer is going to expect them to lose this one in, already kind of built in here, right? So it won't affect their position in fourth because this is one of the games that the computer expects them to lose. But where it's significant is if they were to pull off an upset, then they just move their chances just way, way, way up the board, Jeremy.
Yeah, Hebron can breathe a bit easier in this one, just given the result that they just enjoyed. Of course, they won't be breathing easier. They'll be going in guns blazing, trying to get their result if they can. But yeah, in terms of playoff prospects, as you mentioned, no clear and present danger there for them, so they can play loose and free.
Exactly. Down in 16-6A, Jeremy, we've got a matchup between Cy Ranch and Waller. With Cy Ranch favored by 2, traveling out to Waller for this one. So that's going to be an outstanding football game.
Yeah, Will. And again, Waller, I mentioned this on a couple of earlier pods, but yeah, they finished just on the outside of the playoffs last year. So it's like they're just a hungry football team this season to make sure they get in on the party. In 16-6A currently sitting alongside Cy Ranch. They're actually the only 2 remaining unbeaten teams in the district at 2-0. So the winner of this game is going to have a leg up there in the district title race. And for Waller, sitting in a really solid position to get into the playoffs this year, but they're going to obviously want to do everything they can to make it as solid as it can possibly be. And yeah, super close model expectation on this one, given they're only separated by 50 ELO points. So, and you look at they performed very similarly to one another. When you just look at their raw points points against numbers, it's like almost identical when you look at that, both over 40 points a game on offense and then right around kind of 20 points allowed mark on the defensive side of the ball. So yeah, it should be a really, really good football game.
Yeah, it should. We can find him here on the scatter plot. So you can see Waller here, maybe not quite as strong on defense, but close in adjusted offense. So that's they're close enough where you expect a ball game. All right, on from that one, Jeremy, here's the game. This is going to decide your playoff picture in 13-6A, essentially. You have Conroe at Grand Oaks. Grand Oaks is a 1-point favorite, and let's bring up the standings here to remind folks of where that sits. Here it is, plain as day. This is your battle here, Jeremy. This one, I think, will pretty much settle it, depending on who wins.
Yeah, well, that's going to be your 4th playoff team, whoever wins that one. So Yeah, it is a massive game there, and that's really going to settle the district. Along with the game that's going to be played next week. That's when you'll have the College Park Woodlands matchup on October 17th. So after these next couple of weeks, your 13-6A playoff picture is pretty much going to be nailed down.
Yeah, indeed it will. Next on the board is Temple versus Waco Midway. Midway being a 6-point favorite here. We'll stroll on down to 12-6A, just next door to where we were. So you got Midway sitting projected second in the district and Temple projected fourth, 5-1 versus 4-1. Really, both teams in great position at this point. They like where they're sitting, but obviously they want more and they want to compete for the district title, which is still all to be played for. This is a huge game in 12-6A.
Yeah, it is. Not a whole lot of separation in there just yet. So it's like every single one of these in a smaller district, of course, is critical. So yeah, they're going to be going all out as you would expect. They're trying to make their positions as secure as they can possibly be. And the model's got this one really nicely poised there. Midway 64.6% favored, 6 points on the scoreboard.
Absolutely. Next, Jeremy, Cinco Ranch versus Peyto. Peyto is a percentage point favorite. So 50.7 of an ELO nod toward the Peyto Panthers here. And this one is a little bit extra interesting because if we go to 19-6A and we look at where Peyto and Cinco are currently projected, the computer's expecting this to be one of Cinco's 2 losses because, as you can see, Peyto is slightly ahead of them in ELO. So what does that mean? That means if Cinco were to, in fact, win this game, then they've almost guaranteed themselves a playoff spot, right? They would need to beat Morton Ranch, and then they would be at 5 wins, which is almost always going to get you in the playoffs in a 9-team district. So huge game here for Cinco. For Peyto, again, they're expected to win this game, and even with that, they're just barely getting to that 5-win mark. So it's a must-have, honestly, for both teams here, Jeremy, and it should be a really tight ball game.
It is. And yeah, you see just what that Cinco result over Jordan did there with the model expectation, because a couple of weeks ago, I would not have seen that coming in the model. This basically being a 50-50 toss up, Peyto and Cinco. I would have had Cinco, or Peyto rather, is like a 10 to 15 point favorite, potentially just even a couple of weeks ago, because Cinco had a big underperformance last week against Taylor. You see where Taylor is there on the standings in dead last, and Cinco kind of barely got out of that one just a week ago. So it just shows you kind of how variable things are here in 19-6A. So yeah, going to be massive game. One of a few that are coming up here over the next couple of weeks. It's pretty backloaded district schedule for all the teams involved and teams at the top here. So going to be a lot of fun to watch down the stretch.
Yeah, it really is. All right. Next on the list, we have Hutto versus Round Rock. Another one that's just less than a single percentage point nod towards one direction, with Round Rock getting the ever so slight nod there over the Hutto Hippos.
Yeah, and we scroll down to the standings here, you'll see just how essential this game is for Hutto, given their position, and Round Rock. They're both sitting, you got a 5-team battle essentially for 4 playoff spots, and you could really still even go down to Cedar Ridge and call it a 6-team race for the 4 playoff spots when you look at the model expectation there. But really the magic number in this district, according to the model, seems to be that 6-win mark. Got to be able to get to at least 5 to be in contention here. So yeah, just massive game. And you see what a win for Hutto here would do to the percentages in this district. You'd see a big reversal there this time next week based on a reversal or a confirmation, depending on which way this matchup goes.
Yeah, so you can see, of course, with Round Rock having a higher ELO in this 6-2, they're expected to win this game. But if they drop it, that would set them on a course for 5-3, and Hutto would be at 5-3 also, except they would have the head-to-head. So, yeah, enormous football game. All right, next on the board is Klein Oak Tomball. Jeremy, there they are again. The Klein Oak Panthers taking on on the Tomball Cougars. Tomball is favored by 15, but would anyone be surprised if Klein Oak won this game?
No, and I know they'll have Tomball's complete and undivided attention because Tomball played a great game against Klein Collins, the team Oak just upset this past week, a couple of weeks back. So it's like they'll know based on that result that, yeah, this is a team they're going to have to take extremely seriously and expect Coach Handel and the guys there at Tomball to do just that. Well-coached, well-drilled football team, and should be an excellent football game and be neat to see what ends up unfolding on the field. If Tomball can play to that model expectation or maybe even above it, or if we get another barn burner, it's like you never quite know what to expect when it comes to Oak.
Yeah, or anything in 15-6A. Next, Jeremy, we've got Cy-Fair 4-1 versus Houston Memorial, also 4-1. Cy-Fair is favored by 4 on the ELO, 60% to win this one. This one is effectively a district title bout.
It is, and we saw just recently Memorial getting a massive result over Cy Falls, I believe it was there.
Yep.
And positioning themselves, one of the cooler stories I feel like in the state of Texas this season with what the Mustangs have done thus far on their start with new coaching staff and all that. Brooks Hack coming in from Randall High School there at the 5A level, fresh off a state championship a year ago, and taking his talents to Memorial there. And he's got that program playing at a good level already. Their only losses to an undefeated Pearland team that we discussed earlier in the pod. And Cy-Fair well entrenched in this part of town with their position typically atop 17 6A proceedings as they usually are. So yeah, huge game for both of these. And as you mentioned, district championship potentially in contention there, and going to be an excellent football game, I feel like.
Yes, sir. Next after that one is Byron Nelson versus Keller. Byron Nelson, the 16-point favorite. A little bit surprising there, but they've been playing really well. They have some impressive wins on their resume. Keller's one of those teams, though, that's always pretty solid, so definitely cannot take the Indians lightly. Let's go to check out that district yet again, see where these teams line up with each other. So yeah, you got Keller here sitting at 4th, Byron Nelson sitting at 2nd. Keller, is kind of battling out with LD Bell there to get that final spot. So they would love to get free of a potential tiebreak there, but it's a tall task to knock off this Byron Nelson squad.
Yeah, Byron Nelson's been playing really good football since they took that heavy defeat to Carroll. And they've really kind of turned it on the past couple of weeks. So be curious to see how that one goes. Expect Byron Nelson to play to the model expectation here, but we'll see if there's potentially a surprise. Keller, as you just saw in the district standings, has plenty of motivation given the logjam that they're kind of stuck in there for the contention on who gets 4th place in this district. You see it's a 3-team race for one spot there.
Yeah, and I haven't been able to build this into the logic of this table yet, but honestly, it should show Bell at 4th based on the fact that they've already played Keller and beaten them. I just haven't built that level of sophistication into this table yet.
It just makes this game all the more important for Keller since they have lost that game against Bell that you just pointed out. It's like, then you've got to climb the ladder and get one. Otherwise, you're going to end up on the wrong end of that tiebreak.
Yeah, indeed. All right. What do we have next? Johnson Reagan. It's kind of that annual game where, this is usually to determine who's number one. Johnson's a very heavy favorite in this one, probably a bigger favorite than we've seen since we've been doing this, certainly with TNG anyways. Normally you see Reagan as a pretty solid, favorite often, but they're sitting at 2 and 3. Johnson's undefeated. So yeah, tall task there for the Rattlers, Jeremy.
Yeah, it is. Johnson's just playing at a really good level. They look to be really impressively the number one team there in 27 6A. So we'll see if we get confirmation on that based on this result. But as it is, Reagan considered to be a very strong playoff team, according to the model expectation in that district. So they'll want to do their utmost to contend for the district title, of course. But should they drop this, as is the expectation here in the model, obviously it does not end their season. These are the two largest enrollment schools in 27 6A, so this will determine playoff seeding in all likelihood here for the Div 1 reps out of 27.
Yes, sir. And then you got Cy Springs versus Langham Creek here, Jeremy. We talked about these earlier, both surprise 4-1 teams. Springs being a surprise just because they had to beat Bridgeland to get there. The Langham Creek's just kind of been quietly taking care of business. So this is a fascinating matchup here with Springs being a 6-point favorite. And let's go to that district yet again.
Yeah. Yes, but see, you're going to want to go there because you'll see something really interesting here.
Here we go. It's another one of those deals. So look, if Langham Creek pulls off this victory, they'd be projected to 4-3. Cy Springs would fall to 4-3 with Langham having the head-to-head there. So this one is a default play-in game, if you will, for now, anyways.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, just massive game for both of these programs here this season.
Yep. Just a couple more here, folks. We're going to skip over Skyline Lancaster only because the computer has just been dreadfully slow in catching up to Skyline and the difficulties they're facing this year. It's kind of, it's not a bug of ELO. It's really slow when teams are expected to lose and they get beat. But anyway, this game I would expect to be much heavier in Lancaster's favor when it goes to zeros on the clock there. So we'll go on to Bowie versus Martin here. That's shaping up to be a great game. Martin's got to have it, man. If they want to get into the postseason, they've got to take this one. They're 5-point underdogs, Jeremy. But let's go to that table so we can see that.
Yep.
Yeah, so Martin's sitting here currently projected 5th. In a tie with Lamar, but Lamar having beaten them, that puts a damper on things. Martin's got to get this win here. They've got a shot by the computer. Just gotta get it done.
Yep, absolutely. And Martin, if they can make their position stronger, they'll be a contender for a D1 spot there as the number 2 enrollment in the district. So that's the impact there. You see Sam Houston, the top enrollments on the very bottom of the district standings there. So Martin is an auto D1 if they can secure one of the top 4 spots. But yeah, have to come out and get this one given where they're sitting with regard to tiebreak in the top 4 right now.
Exactly. Royce City Legacy should be a tight game, but these two, Jeremy, are probably too far gone at this point to make a run at the playoffs. Still 2 quality teams, just unfortunate to be stuck with the other folks in their area.
Yeah, just an unbelievably strong district there in 10-6A. You only got 7 teams, and they've got 5 really good ones contending for the 4 playoff spots effectively in this district.
Yep. And last game on the board, it'll be interesting to see just in that, we saw South Grand Prairie in the crazy high adjusted scoring offense. The fact they're undefeated, but Arlington Lamar could bite them here if they're not careful. They're within the kind of magic range. Anything within 2 scores is definitely, ripe for a potential upset here, Jeremy. So as good as the Warriors have been, this is going to be a tough test for them.
It is. And I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, SGP through 4 games is averaging 60.0 points a game. I mean, Wow, that's a lot of offense.
That is a lot.
Likewise, the Vikes there scoring about 31 points a game themselves. And just going to be interesting to see if SGP can keep playing at the really good level they've been in. I mean, we talked about turning back the clock on a couple occasions here. SGP turning back the clock a bit themselves.
Yeah, their lowest scoring game of the season was last week when they put up 48 on Arlington. That was their lowest output. So they hit 59, 60, and 72 the other games. Ridiculous. So that covers us, Jeremy. So a lot of great stuff. Hope y'all enjoyed that.
Yeah, just some excellent results that came through there in week 6 and some great games coming up again in week 7. They're going to move us another inch closer to the playoffs as we work our way through October. Now be moving into mid-October when we play this next set of games. So wild to think about, but yeah, we are not far at all from having playoff brackets in our hands. So yeah, keep following along with us at Tradition Never Graduates. Follow all the Substack content. Of course, so you can look at the graphics and content that we're putting out in detail as you have time this week ahead of the next set of games. And thank you all for joining us as always on this podcast, and look forward to coming back with you next week, reviewing week 7 and previewing week 8 when we next meet. So y'all take care, and we will see you again soon.